Hello everybody, this is Conquering History Games and welcome to Alpha 0.8 Divided States of Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiserreich. I know we've all been waiting a really long time for this one to drop. Now, the first thing that I want to say, be sure to check the title of this video. This is the Pacific States of America campaign, episode 1. If I have scheduled things correctly on YouTube, there should be 3 other episode 1s that are going up at the same time of other campaigns. And I'm just going to sort of try to... I'm eventually going to play through all 4 of them, but I'm just going to kind of gauge, see which one people like the most, which one they're most eager to see, and I'm going to prioritize finishing that one first. But just so there's no confusion, because you're going to be seeing this intro a lot, this is the Pacific States of America campaign. So I'm really excited about the Pacific States of America. We're going to be playing as the United States because I never really played it outside of live streams before because I had a really big problem. I thought it was a fatal flaw about how the Pacific States of America, you could win as them, you could defeat the other offshoot countries, and then you would revert to being the United States of America. And so MacArthur would suddenly be in charge instead of Howard Hughes or whoever I had picked, and then like the focus tree got changed over, and I really didn't like that. They've fixed that up in here, and that's really key. But also, although I do not know how to do it yet as of the start of this video, they have expanded the amount of potential presidents for the United States of America. I believe that the official count is there could be 100 possible leaders. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that also includes, the CSA and the Pacific States and the American Union State, but still, over 100. That's quite a lot. And I'm going to see if I can get Nixon, who I think could only become available in 1952, so that means it would have to be a very long campaign. Now, that is not, of course, going to be an end goal. If the game starts to lag too much, I won't do it, but I think that could be fun. Now, it's my understanding that in order to get Nixon, this is just from chat on the Discord, you have to play as the Pacific States of America. You have to defeat all the other countries of the United States of America. That's the only way that he'll become available. So anyway, thank you very much, Kaiserreich team. We are going to say that I want to know everything. I'm not going to necessarily read every single event, but let's just see what other sorts of new fun things are going on in the world. So this is the new focus tree here for the United States, and you actually can start to work on things before, all hell breaks loose. You can either work on the Navy or the Air Force. I think I am going to work on, I don't know, let's work on the Navy or something. We got a couple of free military factories here. I guess this doesn't really matter. We'll just dump everything into infantry equipment because I'm going to be switching over to the Pacific States later anyway. For our land doctrine, maybe I'm thinking let's do some mobile warfare. I think what I'm going to do for the 4 things, when I do the 4 main branches, Pacific States, American Union State, United States, and CSA, I'm going to do different doctrines for each of them. So I think for this, let's do mobile warfare. Whoops. Okay, next up, we'll just do, I think, the basics. Get the engineering. Now, there is you should really check out the change logs for all this, but one thing that I want to bring up to people, because I'm sure this is going to be big, the cost for divisions, like their production costs here, has been increased by 50%. That's what the change log says, and that is supposed to be done in an effort to reduce division spam by the AI. We'll see how well it works. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll just see. Let's bring everybody over here to Washington, and you guys know what I basically, whenever I know I'm going into the Civil War, so that I do not get accused of what would I say, favoritism or like gamesmanship, I always just build in Missouri, because Missouri just gets ripped to shreds. So, the United States in 1936. In 1936, the United States of America is gripped by an unrelenting crisis, unable to avoid the horrors of the First Weltkrieg, which allowed its prosperity to continue well into the 1920s. German victory in the First Weltkrieg, followed by the French and British revolutions, led to the Wall Street crash of 1925. This sent to the United States spiraling into the Great Depression and allowed the Berlin stock market to take its place at the forefront of the world economy. The election of Herbert Hoover in 1928, while initially promising, failed entirely to reverse the decline of the American economy, and by 1936, the country had spent over a decade in the midst of the worst financial crisis it had ever seen. This fueled the rise of radical parties in America, from the far-left Socialist Party of America to the far-right America First Party. However, Hoover's contentious re-election by means of the House of Representatives in 1932 and the ongoing Great Depression means that these problems are unlikely to be resolved anytime soon. Many throughout the country fear the upheaval that will result should one of the extreme parties come to power, or should the Depression continue unabated. God save America. So, as a heads up, we're going to have MacArthur take over, because this is what I think is a really great change they did another great change they did to the Pacific States. The Pacific States do not always break off when the Civil War breaks out. That will only happen if a non-moderate is in power, and then that causes MacArthur to do the coup, and then the Pacific States of America breaks off because they don't want to be part of MacArthur's America. So it is truly the concept of last bastion of American democracy. So, for example, let's say you went with moderate, because go check out my How to Avoid the Second American Civil War video guide if you want to understand how that happens. But let's say that you were not able to avoid the Civil War, but you did elect a moderate, such as Gardner, for example. You could, or even Floyd Olson, but things, he then screwed up afterwards. So, like right here, we have the coalition ticket. A lot of things are going on. Profits from the legation cities. We just got hit with Black Monday. Well, then, then California and all the rest will still stay in the United States, and it'll just be a three-way civil war instead of a four-way. All right, coalition ticket. So I'm really wanting to role play a lot as we go into version 0.8. So, coalition ticket, the 1936 election is looking to be one of the most contentious in American history. Many politicians within the upper circle of the Republican and Democratic parties fear that a victory by the Socialist Party of America or the America First Party would mean the end of America and the American way of life. In order to avoid this, a plan has been proposed within the halls of power to form a coalition ticket between the Republican and Democratic parties, with progressive Senator Floyd Olson of Minnesota as the presidential candidate. This plan is unlikely to be popular with lower-ranking members of the parties, but it may be the only thing that could prevent the radical parties from gaining strength. So we are going to form that coalition. So now we've got the national unity parties here. And I'm doing this for role-playing purposes. We're not going to avoid the Civil War. It's definitely going to happen. And in fact, we're going to have a coup. All right, so we've got that done. Let's go with working on the Air Force a little bit. Just a little bit. All right, yeah, so we've got that political crisis, which is lowering our stability and war support weekly. Damn. Yeah, it's rough. The Civil War is so much bloodier now. It's really rough. Now, I'm going to just make some early predictions on how the Civil War... Actually, no, never mind, because I'm going to be influencing the Civil War. Let's take a little bit of time to look around, I suppose. It's the United States. Nothing really happens in the first year. Kind of like when you're playing as Russia, which is probably my favorite country, but from the testing, I think the United States and its offshoots might become my favorite. I need to play it through more, because even though I had early access, I wasn't really playing proper campaigns. I was mostly exploring mechanics. Charles Collins, CBS radio broadcasts. We're going to do, I hate what he says, but I defend his right to say it. Democracy down in Australasia. My longest guide ever, by the way, if you've never seen it. Oh, cool. Prince George is in charge. Very cool. Uh-oh. Well, I have no idea what I just clicked. I think it was something with the Southern Democrats. Well, it's not a big deal because the coalition's going to fall apart anyway. But, wow. They've really, let's see, the people, they can help themselves. They really have got to fix that in Hearts of Iron 4. This is not a Kaiserreich issue. It's a Hearts of Iron 4 issue where you could just click on things. They need to do like they do in so many of the other... Hearts of Iron 4, other Paradox games where there's a pause so you can't accidentally just click something. We've also got Axis, as you can see. I'm just putting some ships. It doesn't really matter what. We've also got the brand new naval tech tree. Let's go take a look at that real quick. If we come over here, escort ships and capital ships and submarines. Pretty cool stuff. We have our dreadnoughts starting with the Maine, the one that got blown up, right? New localizations explaining their development. Super duper cool, I think. Go check out the video I did on let's come over here. Yeah, airports. Go check out the video I did on the Kaiserreich naval rework. We have some more Socialist Party of America members announcing congressional bids. All right. Get some rubber going. Okay, so since we are doing mobile warfare, let's grab the Stuart over here. 36 Stanley Cup is going to be the Red Wings or the Maple Leafs. I'm going to say the Maple Leafs. Yep, called it. Congratulations, Canadians. They're drafting their bill. What's going on elsewhere in the world? There's a lot of other focus trees that have gotten little tune-ups and changes. For example, over here in Ireland, one thing I was noticing is they fixed up the ancestral ties. I remember it just was sprawling and out here and ugly. Looks a little better now. Hey, as long as I'm advertising other campaigns of mine, you should definitely go check out one of my favorite campaigns of all times, the Irish-American Coalition. That was a multiplayer game I did with Gur, a long-time Patreon and moderator of mine on my Discord. Olson's Domination in a massive rally in Sacramento. Sacramento! Remember that. With leading members from the Republican, Democratic, and Progressive parties, Senator Olson himself came out to accept his nomination as the coalition presidential candidate. This massive rally has been surprisingly well received by the press and those attending it. Hopefully, it can translate to election results. So, Sacramento and California are definitely down with democracy. Cool. Good to know. Also, I really like, I don't think they had this before, Panama's pressuring Costa Rica. Yeah, a lot of new stuff going on down here in Central America. I don't think they had this before, but you now have all of the commanders who are going to be around in the Civil War available here. So you just have this huge list of field marshals. Wait, where'd Henry Arnold's photo go? That's weird. It was the, very strange. So anyway, like you have, obviously MacArthur's here, but like George Marshall is an available one here. If you come down to the generals, Patton, who's of course the field marshal for the American Union State, he's here as a general. Smedley Butler is here as a commander and a general. Just those kinds of little details I think are so great. The United States is definitely, in terms of story, my favorite country, except for maybe Russia. And as I've said, it's been so reworked, the United States might be my new favorite. So, we have a special election going on in Washington. We are going to have the Socialists win that one. All right, here we go. Expand the airports. The airports with the space. I just noticed that. Okay, expand the WASPs. Paramilitary militias are forcing with both the Socialist Party and the America First Party. Uh-oh. Things are getting a little tense here. We've got a special election in New Jersey, and Charles Lindbergh is going to win that, of the American First Party. I'm hoping to get a certain event pop up. Right, and mechanical computing. Yes. Actually, no, not mechanical. Or wait. Got the death of William Big Bill Haywood. So this is who they have instead of the Lithuanian guy who dies. Elizabeth Gurley Flynn spoke at the funeral, saying history has a long-range perspective. It ultimately passes stern judgment on tyrants and vindicates those who fought, suffered, and were imprisoned and died for human freedom against political oppression and economic slavery. Anyway, oh, shoot! There it was. Okay, so the compromise, we just missed the unity compromise thing. It should have picked the Republicans, I think. Red Summer. A lot of violence, racial violence going on across the United States. Whoops. Alright, Great Heat Wave of 1936. It's fine, because even if the coalition survives, well, we'll just see when we get there. We're only in June. More American First parties running for Congress. We've got violence against a lot of politicians. Jack Reed and Huey Long have both had assassination attempts on their lives. Let's just put Harding here or something. I don't know. Just give him something dumb. Okay. Indian Citizenship Bill. Sure, pass the act. Let's see how well that goes. Radio, that's what I wanted. Because everything I research as the United States should then carry over, I believe. So here's what I'm just going to say about, because I haven't really played a true proper campaign. And sorry to anybody who's watching episode 1 of all 4 of these things, because I'm repeating myself a lot, I'm sure. But the war is very different. The Civil War. It's really much harder now for everybody involved, except for one particular party who I'll talk about after the Civil War breaks out. So he has chosen Quentin Roosevelt as his vice presidential candidate, that being Floyd Olson, who's bringing his fair deal to the table. All right. Well. Looks like the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth formed. Very, very interesting. I'm going to do battlefield support. Very interesting indeed. You don't see that often. Ugh! Alright. So we've got Totalists in France and the Union of Britain. Syndicalists in the SRI. Siamese is broken out in a rebellion. Cool. And Indochina should declare its independence here in a couple of weeks. I'm also going to do a not Blood on the Streets of Shanghai. You know, this is happening more and more lately, I notice, is the Triad Syndicates take over. But that's cool. I like it. All right. We're going to say this cannot be allowed to stand, just so we got the Annex War Goal. I don't know if that's going to carry over to the Pacific States. Now we'll find out. There it is. Indochina just declared independence with Nguyen. That reminds me, I need to fix those technical problems. I had a couple episodes of the Indo-Chinese Union that still need to go up. Oh, Saudi Arabia was formed. What a surprise. What's going on over here in the Republic? Oh, yeah, they're not going to have their election for a little bit. Can't have everything happening at once. And in Russia, we've got, Dmitry going with Wrangel's plan. Heat wave's over, got a little bit of stability back. Now we're only at -9. With Charles Evans Sr., Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He's in charge here. Now, I've been told, and actually I know that there are, at least for the CSA, that there are some Supreme Court-related events, which I think is really cool. And I've been told there's a Hugo Black one somewhere. I think it's if you go via the American Union State. Now, Hugo Black is... I really like a lot of Supreme Court justices across the political spectrum, just because learning their stories, studying their stories. Hugo Black was a United States Supreme Court justice who was born in Alabama, or classic, full-blown KKK Alabama, outside of Birmingham. Now, when he got older, he joined the KKK. And this was at a time when I think I once saw this stat. It was something like Birmingham had a population of 32,000 and 15,000 of them were in the KKK. The KKK was huge. And eventually he leaves them. And after he leaves them, the Royalists won in Siam, he ends up running for office and becomes the senator of of Alabama. And eventually he is appointed by FDR to the Supreme Court. He then really gets a reputation even before he was actually, when he was just a lawyer in Alabama, but especially once he was on the Supreme Court, he gets this reputation of being a very pro equal racial rights kind of guy. And eventually Thurgood Marshall, the lawyer who argued the case for the NAACP of Brown versus Board of Education, which ended segregation in American schools, when Thurgood Marshall gets nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court by President Lyndon Johnson, who was so Hugo Black was still on the court. It had been, I want to say, over 30 years or almost 30 years at that point. Thurgood Marshall specifically requested for Hugo Black to swear him in. So you had this former KKK member swearing in the first black justice of the United States Supreme Court, and I just think that's a really cool story. So 1936 presidential election. The results are finally in from what has probably been the most ideologically contested presidential election the United States has ever witnessed. None of the three major parties have secured enough votes in the Electoral College to outright win the presidency, and as a result, the House of Representatives once again has to vote on the winner of the election. This is probably not the end of our problems, but for the time being, victory goes to... Now, you know how I said it didn't make a big deal that I accidentally didn't click those things because if the coalition fell apart or not? Because we are going to go with the, oh my god, completely out of nowhere, Jack Reed, the socialist, gets elected president of the United States. The writer, the trade union leader, the senator, the journalist, and syndicalist. The man who wore many hats, but none of them in this portrait. So, the American First Party is now contesting the election results. And now we're going to get some interesting events. You know, I was just talking about the Supreme Court. We should be getting some here, I think. But I think they don't start until he gets inaugurated. All right, let's get that. Hoover criticizes the president. Oh, F him, right? F him. Weren't we supposed to have automatically gotten this research, or is that in a second? No, we're about to get it. That research. Let's see how this is looking over here. Okay, Air Defense Corps. Now we've got access to the base anti-air gun stuff. Let's get some radar technology, because why not, I guess. Don't matter. Don't none this matter. What else is going on in the world? Now, of course, down here, we have the new focus trees in many of these countries. I don't know which one of them I'm going to play. They're Sendino. Oh, they actually dressed him up. Yeah, I don't know which of the... I'm really curious to see, like, what of the four I want to do, because I'm not really... I don't think one of the four that are getting uploaded at the same time, I don't think one of them is going to be the American Union State. Reason number one is I already have an American Union State campaign up on the channel. It was actually the first Hearts of Iron 4 campaign I ever did on the channel. I know it's out of date, but I'm actually really, really torn between if I want to do Business Plot, Huey Long, or the Pelly route. All three of them seem interesting. So I don't know, but I am going to definitely do a Combined Syndicates of America run, because although if that ends up being the most popular one, I'll probably still upload a different thing more often, because there's something very unique that I have planned for that campaign, the CSA one, and it's going to require more editing. Where usually my videos are unedited, but the CSA one's going to require editing. All right, President, and you'll see why when you see it. All right, President Reed's inaugural address. The country's social problems have forced the American people to turn to radical solutions. The two-party system has broken down, and Jack Reed is to be sworn in as the 31st President of the United States, with Norman Thomas being sworn in as the Vice President. Was that there before? I think that's the first time they've mentioned who his Vice President is. In a stirring speech in Washington, D.C., Reed has pledged to defend the interests of the workers and work to help revolutionize society for the good of all Americans. However, the SPA's slim majority in Congress means that it may find it challenging to pass meaningful legislation, especially in the Senate, where the AFP has promised to filibuster any law it sees as detrimental to America. Let the people rejoice! We've got Jack Reed in charge. So the CSA is definitely going to be one, and I'm going to do a MacArthur run, because I never have. I've never actually done anything that wasn't a live stream for the United States. Executive Order 7080, directing the Secretary of Labor to protect workers' rights. One of his first acts was to enshrine the rights of unions, unwilling to wait to overcome the Senate filibuster, and citing the violent conflict between AFP and SPA paramilitaries. Reed has passed an executive order that forced state and federal governments to recognize a union's right to exist and engage in collective bargaining without exception, as well as forbidding yellow dog contracts from existing. While unions rejoice, many in the country denounce the executive order as a tyrannical act of the executive branch. You know, executive orders are really they're pretty controversial things in the United States, because there's two versions of it. there's two versions of executive orders. There's the ones declaring today is National Cranberry Day because of the cranberry farmers. We honor them. And then there's the ones saying, that we're gonna do a drone strike somewhere, something like that. Incidentally, a yellow dog contract, for those who don't know, is a contract where a worker, when he's working for a business, swears to never join a union, and like that's a condition of employment. The bourgeois are furious. From New York to San Francisco, the rich and powerful protested Reed's election in the Hearst newspapers and in congressional addresses. It is clear that the upper class is furious at the enforcement of Executive Order 1033-9. Was that a different executive order that was supposed to pop up? It's the game. The new update just came out. There's bound to be a couple of issues here and there. The opposition denounces him as a tyrant. You see here it says 70-80. So that's weird. Also, the thing with executive orders is that they expire when a president leaves office. So what's kind of interesting is that often you'll have a lot of presidents who they get inaugurated, and the first thing they do before they go party is they re-sign several executive orders to like reinstate them. Executive Order 7089, directing the Secretary of Commerce to temporarily take possession of and operate the facilities of certain financial companies. Inability to deal with the Great Depression has been the death of two major parties, and it would be the death of the SPA unless Reed acted quickly and decisively. Believing that the corrupt financial sector was primarily responsible for creating and prolonging the Depression, Reed has moved to nationalize the banks to force them to act in the public rather than the private good. A filibuster by Senator Roosevelt, that's probably Quentin Roosevelt, has forced Reed to resort to an executive order appealing yet again to national security. While popular with the lower classes, many fear that Reed is drunk on his power and well on his way to declaring himself a tyrant. The rich shall now pay. So right now, all right, let's think about things here. So Reed has so far pissed off the American First Party and the Senate, and now he's pissing off Quentin Roosevelt, so that's the Republican Party. Oh, the Indo-Chinese were defeated. Well, good thing I'm not going syndicalist. You see, I tricked the game because you guys, longtime Kaiserreich players, know how it is. Like, whenever you go syndicalist, the syndicalists all lose. Whenever you go pat autocratic, all the pat autocrats lose. So I'm tricking the game because I'm not going to stay syndicalist. So I tricked it. Take that, Kaiserreich AI. So, speaking of pissing people off, the Supreme Court will hear challenges to Reed's executive orders. The Supreme Court has allowed the first challenge to Executive Order 1033-9, Standard Oil of California versus Paul Maddock, to be heard. The nation waits to see if Reed's power will be checked or whether the SBA will continue to enact their agenda in defiance of the Senate. Damn reactionaries. Now, I don't know who would be on the Supreme Court in this universe. Well, let's check out our ministers. We've got Jack Reed, Eugene Dennis, Paul Maddock, and John Abt. All right. Last thing, American jets. Off we go into the wild blue yonder. So, directing the Secretary of the Interior to temporarily take possession of and operate the facilities of certain mining companies. The belief that public land was a public good is essential to most left-leaning parties, and the flagrant abuse of public land by mining companies had long been a source of deep bitterness for the environmentally minded. To most of Reed's cabinet, it was clear that private mining companies would be entirely unable to balance the needs of the public with their greed, and move to nationalize the drilling and mining companies, including Standard Oil. That is an enormous country. That's an enormous company in American history, Standard Oil, whose case against Executive Order 1033-9 was still pending. This has been seen by many as an unsupporting attack against a political rival, and further confirmation that Reed wishes to turn America into a syndicalist state like the Commune of France and the Union of Britain, which I'm sure is scaring lots of people right now because they've actually gone full-blown totalist. So, yeah, public land, that's an argument because when the El Paso, which, hey, they finally made El Paso a city. Anyway, El Paso, the hometown that I grew up in, there was an event called the Salt War when it was like, I think in the 1880s, when there was a fight that turned violent between local Mexican, like ethnically Mexican people who would go to the salt mines, these salt quarries that existed there, and then you had these private individuals who were claiming ownership of this land that had been public for centuries, really. And then even today in El Paso, when you talk to people who know about the Salt War, it's still a really contentious issue. So, packing the court. Although Reed showed no signs of concern over Standard Oil versus Paul Maddock, that's him down here, the economic minister, his administration is concerned that the conservative-leaning Supreme Court could rule 7-2 in favor of the capitalists and revert whatever reforms had already been put in place, citing Lincoln's court packing during the Civil War as precedent. That's true. There was up to 10 members of the Supreme Court during Lincoln's administration. Reed has, before they reduced it back to the 9, which it is now, Reed has asked Senator, that's a typo, Senate Majority Leader Meyer London to remove the filibuster for judicial appointees and has increased the size of the Supreme Court to 15. Wow, that's something. I'm wondering who the 7 votes are, because in our own timeline, you would have had the 4 horsemen who were the conservative members of the court. So that would have been McReynolds, Sutherland, Van Devanter? I want to say it was Van Devanter. And Butler. So that's probably 4 of the votes. I don't know what the other 3 are. It's probably Charles Hughes in there too. Anyway, it is clear that he intends to appoint 6 pro-socialist justices to the bench, which will ensure his executive orders will remain constitutional. This has provoked a firestorm of protest, even from the left-leaning farmer, labor, and progressive parties, which have so far remained neutral or supportive of Reed. We must defend the workers, whatever it takes. So right now, like, the people like Reed, they voted him in, and that's about it. That's about the only ones who do. So, all right. Violence and chaos spreads in the immediate aftermath of Reed's court packing. Long has come out aggressively against Reed, all but calling for an armed uprising, etc., etc. Order must be restored. All right, it's about to bust open here, I tell you. It's about to happen. Sardom was restored. Clashes between Minutemen and police. Wait, let me go check real quick. Is it Dimitri? Tsar Dimitri? We got Tsar Dimitri. Hey, this is a new portrait. Oh, this looks much better. Before his head, it really looked photoshopped on. That one's definitely better. Okay, wait. Real quick. Let's get this up here. All right. Research slots. I guess construction or something. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. We're about to switch over. So, yeah, Jack Reed, you are not making very many friends except for the people. Oh, here it is. MacArthur marches onto Washington, D.C. Douglas MacArthur marched into Washington, D.C. today to restore order, having declared Reed to be a tyrant and attempted to arrest him at the White House, having been tipped off by SBA informants and MacArthur's command staff. That probably was Butler. You know, you see, this is what I'm talking about. Deepest lore. It was definitely Smedley Butler who tipped him off. All right. Reed was able to stay ahead of the traitorous general and escape to Chicago. Civil war is imminent. My allegiance was to the Republic, MacArthur, to democracy. President Reed declares the Second American Revolution. President Reed has escaped to Chicago and has declared that MacArthur is the traitor to all people of America. He and his followers have taken control of the Steel Belt, and many are starting to listen to his call for revolution against MacArthur and the bourgeoisie. The disaster has begun. Stand by the Republic. So we are going to stand by the Republic for right now. Huey Long declares the American Union state. We will continue to stand by the Republic, which is, as you can see, it's much different now. And I think this is actually a terrific... I think this is a much better border for how it plays out. Pacific governors are declaring rebellion. The governors of the Pacific states have declared that MacArthur, Huey Long, and Jack Reed are all traitors, tyrants, and enemies of America. They claim that they and they alone are the legitimate America and the last bastion of American democracy. So you see, says, I love, it's just all these little details. I love these little details, like as far as the role-playing goes. We can stand by the government, or we can stand by the Republic. And we will stand by the Republic in this campaign. We will play as the PSA. We are now the Pacific States of America. We've temporarily got Frank Merriman in charge. So in the next episode, we're going to start the Civil War. Very excited. Let me know if you guys like this. Subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to click the bell so you're always notified whenever a new episode of a campaign goes up. I'm Conquering History Games, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.